What is going on, YouTube? I apologize for not being able to sit down and making more videos. This new idea I had for making these videos, just recording them and actually being able to show pictures and hopefully videos along with the recording itself and telling the story along with it. Again, I haven't really been able to sit down and do any videos, but I'm going to do a couple hopefully within the week. This story actually deals with the very famous Freetown State Forest. The forest itself is obviously located in Freetown, Massachusetts. The forest is extremely infamous for the murders, ghost stories, cryptozoological creatures, and even it has its own stories of UFO abductions and whatnot. So, obviously, the story is called the Freetown State Forest. So, this story takes place a couple years ago. A friend of mine had always been talking about this forest to me and trying to get me to go. At the time, I was very interested in the paranormal. I had joined several paranormal teams, and they kind of just fell through. And he was always trying to get me to go to this forest. He was always talking about how he's heard so many ghost stories and just a whole bunch of malarkey he would try to spread to me. So it was one night that I agreed. I was like, all right, let's go take a ride through. And he had built this incredible 4-wheel drive pickup truck. And he lived maybe 5-10 minutes away from the forest. So again, I agreed to go. So that night, we ended up taking a ride to the forest. And halfway through, we started talking about ghost stories that I apparently heard. And stories he wanted to share with me. I don't remember what street it was down. But we ended up driving into this dirt road. And right in front of the dirt road itself is the Freetown State Forest. And we drove down a little dirt path and then into a connecting road. We could take it a left or we could take it a right. And he said, we'll take the right. Now, as soon as we actually entered this forest, it was just me and him, I really started feeling uneasy. And it's a feeling I've never come across before. Even to this day, doing investigations and being on ghost hunts or whatever. And I remember we started driving down this little dirt path, and the further we got in, the more the path seemed to get smaller, or just it grew. The trees were growing closer, and it would just get a little bit harder for him to drive through. And I will never forget this one story he was talking about, where he told me about. He told me about one of his friends who had, I guess, just got back from military training for the Marines, and he was jogging through the forest, and this is maybe 4 or 5 in the morning, and the sun had just started setting. The sun had just started coming up, and he was jogging along this path, and he came across a young woman who was completely seemed out of place to him, and he remembers the kid telling him, saying that his hair is stood on the back of the neck. Kind of a feeling he got, that it was an uneasy feeling. He kind of just wanted to walk away, but he was one of those guys that obviously he's not going to just ignore it. And he started walking up to her, and he had noticed that she had very torn clothing, and she was walking with her head down. And he noticed what seemed like blood on her arms, and he said that he approached her, and he apparently got the feeling that he should have run, and it was something that I guess he just started pulling himself away, and as soon as he started walking away from her, she vanished. And of course he told me this story as soon as we're in the forest, obviously. Anybody who tells me these kind of stories, I kind of take with a grain of salt, if you will. Everybody has their own folklores and ghost stories, and obviously a place like the Freetown State Forest is going to have these ghost stories. So we're driving through, and again, the trail itself is getting smaller and smaller, and obviously it's a little bit tougher for him to drive through. And we go up this extremely this slope, or this hill, and it's very steep, but he ends up making it up, and then we end up onto another road. And as we're driving along, obviously he's telling me the stories and things he's heard, and stories about UFOs and things he's seen, and he was in here, and etc., etc. So we're driving along this long path, and it's very dark. Mind you, this is maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning when we decided to, go into the forest. And we're driving, and we come in front of the truck. His headlights hit something. It looks like a vehicle up ahead. So we start driving a little bit closer, and obviously, the closer we get, the more uneasy feeling I started getting. And again, going back, I already had an uneasy feeling. I've never experienced this feeling before. I didn't feel safe. That's the only way I can explain it. And we drive up to this vehicle, and the vehicle is on the side, and it's on cinder blocks. And these the two doors on all the doors are missing. It's a 4-door vehicle, like a mini I don't know. I can't explain what kind of vehicle it was. It was a mini. It was just like a normal car, and all the doors are missing. The hood's missing, and it looks like it was just discarded. And I don't know if he noticed it, but I looked over into the passenger seat, and there was a person sitting in the passenger seat. And I quickly grew absolutely uneasy, and I kind of just shrugged him. He had already noticed this person. The person was in the passenger seat, and they looked like they were sleeping. I think is the best way I can explain it. They just weren't looking at us. Their heads were down. Their head was down in their arms. And as we stop the vehicle, the person sits up and turns their head towards us, looking at us. And I couldn't make any facial features out. All I just remember was just wanted to go, and I told him, I was like, "Dude, let's go." And he ended up punching the gas. We ended up flying down this small path, and he's, at this point, he doesn't really know where he's going. He's only been here obviously the forest a couple times, and he just hit the gas, and we ended up flying down this path, and we ended up in this clearing, and we stopped the truck, and he's like, I was like, what the hell was that, man? I'm like, what the heck's going on? At first I thought it was a prank, but again, I felt completely uneasy for it. I mean, again, I've never felt this feeling, and even to this day on investigations, it was something I just felt absolutely in fear for my life. But we parked the truck, and he ended up putting it, we're sitting there, and we're kind of collecting our thoughts. And again, maybe we were farther enough away from the said vehicle, that I don't think any person would be able to walk towards us in that matter of time. It was just parked there, so we sit there and we're just trying to gather our thoughts. And the only thing that's running through my head is like, I just want to, I actually kind of want to go home. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, this, obviously with the stories coming from it, the one thing that sticks in my head at that time was not ghosts or not monsters, UFOs. It was more the supposed murders in the forest itself. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden the truck dies. The truck just shuts off. I don't know what it was. The lights go off, the lights shut off, and everything. And I'm like, I thought he had turned the truck off. I'm like, why turn the truck? I asked him, why did you turn the truck off? And he turns to me, he's like, I didn't turn the truck off. It just died. So he's sitting there, he's trying to turn the key, and there's nothing happening. You can't hear the starter go. I'm getting on the truck, and at first we thought maybe the starter had gotten wet or something had happened, and I went to the truck, and you could even hear the starter trying to turn over. There was nothing going on in the truck. So I'm like, at the time I had to use a bathroom, so I walked away from the truck, and I'm walking up to a tree, and I'm maybe 10-15 feet away from the truck. And I don't know what it was, and it was something. So it was almost like something in my head told me just to run back to the truck And exactly what I did. I ended up running back to the truck, and I jumped in the passenger seat. And he turns to me, he's like, what happened? I'm like, I want to get out of here. At this time, the only thing that's running through my head is, oh my god, we're going to have to walk through this forest. We don't have any type of weapon on us. We don't have anything to protect ourselves. And at the time, he was the only one with a cell phone, and he didn't have any bars, and we had no signal at all out there. And I was like, dude, I don't want to walk through this forest. He's like, well, this might be our only option. He's like, hold on, I'm going to go take a piss. So he ends up walking away, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm completely freaked out, and I end up taking he had this huge, gigantic spotlight in his truck. It was like a 1,000,000-watt candle power, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm just sitting there scanning the forest, making sure nothing's gonna come running up, next to me or anything. And I'm scanning the forest, and off to my right, maybe I want to say 25, 30 feet away from the truck, when I turn the spotlight into another clearing, a tree, another set of trees that were heading into another path. It looked like there was people standing there. And when I say people, it almost looked like there was a group of people. And I quickly turned the spotlight back, and there was nothing there. And I'm like, in my head, I'm not thinking paranormal. I'm not thinking anything. I'm thinking maybe the spotlight had shined off the tree, creating shadows or something. Obviously, trying to rationalize with this without trying to scare myself. And he had walked off from the back of the truck, and all of a sudden I heard footsteps, and it sounded like somebody was running towards the truck. And I started freaking out, but I noticed it was him. He jumps in the driver's seat, and I don't know what it was, but he just turned the key, and it ended up starting up, and he throws it in drive, and he just punches the gas, and we're flying through this clearing. And mind you, this clearing, it was very, very high grass, and he's just driving through this, and I'm just like I don't know what was happening. I thought, maybe environmental police or something had happened that we're trying to get out of here, and he's not communicating with me, and I'm starting to freak out. And he's driving, and we end up hitting another path. He's driving, he must have been going 30, 40 miles an hour, and within this forest, you can't drive that fast, because you can eventually hit a rock or something. But he's dodging rocks, he's dodging trees. We drive through this gigantic puddle, and for some odd reason, we end up hitting the street. We end up hitting the road, the main road itself, and he just peels out, and we end up driving down the street, and we're going, again, maybe 40, 50 miles an hour. At this point, I'm trying to get his attention. I'm like, dude, what the hell's going on? He's still like, he's not saying anything. He is pale. He's absolutely, he just saw a ghost. And we get back to his house, and he parks in the driveway, and he opens the driver's door, and he just falls out of the truck. And falls out. He just jumps out of the truck, and he falls on the ground. And I'm sitting there in the driver's seat, and I'm just like trying to collect my thoughts, trying to rationalize what just happened, So I get out of the truck, and I walk up to him like, dude, what the hell just happened, man? And he's sitting there on the ground, and he has his his arms over his head. He's like, you won't believe me. I'm like, dude, try me. And he's like, I'm not going. And he couldn't talk. He was so freaked. It seemed like he was freaked out. And I said, tell me. He's like, I'm sitting there. I'm sitting up against a tree, and I'm taking a piss, and I felt somebody walk up behind me. He's like, no, at first I thought it was you. He's like, and he's like, dude, leave me alone. And I felt this very, very cold hand touch my shoulder. And mind you, he was wearing a muscle shirt. He said he felt it kind of wrap around his neck, and he's like, what the? And he went to turn around, and he said, I was staring in the face of this older looking gentleman, and his jaw wasn't there, and his eyes were black, and he gurgled, or how he ever tried to say it. He said, "You're never leaving this forest alive." And he said, "I just ran." He's like, "And I ran through him." He's telling me this, and I'm kind of just, the paranormal investigator I mean is kind of like trying to rationalize, kind of trying to come up, there's got to be an explanation for this. But he was so surreal about the story, and I know him, and he wanted to make up a story, and he was absolutely freaked out. And he's like, "I'm not lying." I said, "I believe you." So that is my story of the Freetown State Forest, which I don't think I'll ever go up there again or investigate. Alright, YouTube, I really hope you enjoyed that video. Of course, I'm hopefully I'm gonna be able to sit down the next couple weeks and punch out maybe 3 or 4 new stories. This story itself, especially with the Freetown State Forest, if any place, and I always mention this in my videos, and it's just one of those things, please get permission before you go into these places, and especially with a forest. If you're not familiar with a location, bring somebody that is familiar with the location. What had happened to us in the forest itself, whether it was paranormal or not, it was very dangerous. If we had gotten into an accident or overturned the truck or anything had happened to us, who would have known? The forest itself is so large, and if you're not familiar with the location, you can get lost in that forest very easily. And if you go to Google, you'll be able to see these stories that I was talking about. There's so many different folklores and tales of the forest itself. So just go to Google and look at the Freetown State Forest. And for me, just like, subscribe, and keep watching, guys.